Good evening, family. Glory and honor to our Father Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth, and all that in them is, the one who holds all time in his hand. And praise his name. He's causing time to run out. Glory and honor to Father Yahweh, and glory and honor to Messiah Yahweh, who the Father has set as the root and offspring of David, the one who is the high priest, and through whom we receive perfection of righteousness from the Father. Glory and honor to Messiah Yahushua. Greetings to the 12 tribes, awakening now in these last moments of the history of Babylon to who they are, their history, their present, and their future, returning to their God, Father Yah, and to Messiah Yahushua. Greetings. And to the 144,000 who are surely among us now, as the forerunners of the return of the Messiah in the establishment of the Messianic kingdom. Greetings also to the precious children of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, who have come to the Father Yah and to the truth of the true Hebrews through the true line of the tribe of Judah, Messiah Yahushua. Greetings. Greetings to the chat, Sister Love Blue, Castle King, Arkawan Banya, and family, Hebrewist Wanda, Brother Gary Joseph, hope you travel safely, Brother Yafi, Brother Stephen Kelly, and all the rest. Greetings. First off, prayers to the families affected by the Appalachian High School shooting today in Bartow County, Georgia, where 4 people were murdered and 9 people were injured. 14-year-old boy named Colt, what's his name? His name is Colt Gray. Colt Gray was charged in the killings. They got him, brought him in alive, obviously. And we will find out that's not what tonight's current events is about, although that did happen today in Georgia on today, September 4th, 2024, in Appalachian High School in Georgia. I prefer to wait until next week, because as you know, we will get more information. There'll be a lot more information coming out than what we know right now, though we did get a lot of information initially. It said 4 people murdered, 9 people injured, 2 teachers, 2 students murdered, 9 people injured. Like I said, shattered community there in Appalachian High School in Bartow County, Georgia. One thing the sheriff said, I saw one clip. The sheriff of the town said, "We will not be overcome with hate." He said, "We're not going to be overcome with hate. I'm not going to let hate rule this town," he said. Now, where they live is Georgia. It's 83% white. So I suspect we're going to hear some things about the background of the young boy that did these murders and this rampage in the next coming days, which is why I want to wait until next week to really bring that into focus in terms of Bible prophecy. But for today, I have something else that's current events. And so much is going on, brethren. It's not hard to find relevant current events that relate to the times in which we live. It's not hard at all, because if you, as most of y'all are doing, and I'm really, again, giving praise and honor to our Father Yah for all of you brothers and sisters that have taken it upon yourselves to seek the Father and to read his word. I'm really giving praise and honor to the Heavenly Father and to Messiah Yahushua, whose sacrifice for sin allows us to receive the perfect righteousness from the Father. I'm giving praise because of just, if I was to die tonight, I would die satisfied that somehow the Most High used me to cause some of y'all to really read your Bible and seek the Father. My life would be complete. And seriously, I would not worry about anything after that. And I'm just really praising the Most High. And as you are reading your Bibles, you are getting understanding. As I told you, each time you go through from Genesis to Revelation, you will learn more and more and more. The Father will reveal more to you. Your Heavenly Father wants to give you this information, and He is asking you to seek Him and keep doing it, because He's going to keep giving you more and more information. Now, as you do that, you will begin to see, and many of you have already, the correlation. I'm using a big word there, but you will see the correlation between all the events that are taking place every day and what Bible prophecy tells us. And again, Bible prophecy is not for everybody. The revelation of the Messiah, Yahushua, which Father Yah gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. It's not for everybody. The majority of the planet Earth are not his servants. Okay? And we're going to discuss more of that today. Okay? That's how we're going to discuss more of that today. Many of you may or may not be aware, but the flight attendants at United Airlines have voted to go on strike. They're not actually on strike yet, because there's a certain law that permits the strike to be hindered until they can mediate between management and them with an official, certain official, and they have to wait 30 days to see if they can come to an agreement. Now, they might go ahead and strike at any moment, any time. That's the threat they hold over management. But I put in the description box the link to one of the videos on it, a very informative video. It's only about 8 or 9 minutes long, and it'll give you a good understanding of what's happening with that strike. Now, why do I bring that up in terms of Bible prophecy? Well, if you would notice, first of all, let's take it on a broad base situation in the Bible first. In Revelation chapter 18. Well, yes, first let me go to first Daniel, a familiar text for us, Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7. And I'm going to use two texts that say opposite things, and you'll understand why once we look at it. But Daniel chapter 7. And in Daniel 7, we know that there's the same judgment scene that is shown in Revelation chapter 5, where the Father is giving the Mashiach, Messiah, Yahushua, a kingdom. The kingdom is planet Earth. And the kingdom that he's handing him is made up of the citizens of the kingdom. The book of life. The book of life basically contains the citizens of the kingdom. It's the name of all the citizens of the kingdom in the book of life. Okay, so he hands Messiah this in Daniel chapter 7 and in Revelation chapter 5. It's the same event, first one taking place prior to Messiah coming to earth as a man, and the second one taking place after Messiah came to earth as a man, which is why you get the two little slightly different views of it, one from John, one from Daniel. So here in Daniel chapter 7, and I'm going to read from verse 13. I did this the other night, but I'm going to read it today because, again, it's relevant. Daniel chapter 7 from verse 13 down to verse 18. Daniel chapter 7 from verse 13 down to verse 18. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Now, the Son of Man is Messiah. Ancient of Days is the Father. So they brought the Messiah to the Father. They bring the angels. They brought the Messiah to the Father. And there was given him dominion, that is Messiah, dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. Now, verse 18. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. So the saints, which is Israel and those with Israel, in the truth of Israel, will possess the kingdom eternally, perpetuity, with no end. In fact, let's get another witness for that in Revelation chapter 21. Revelation chapter 21. Revelation 21. And go for verse 1 to 5. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from Yahweh out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of Yahweh is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Yahweh himself shall be with them, and be their most high. And Yahweh shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. So the Messiah is going to have a kingdom given to him from the Father, which is this planet Earth. New Jerusalem will sit here as the capital of the kingdom, and it's going to be forever, and there'll be no more death in the kingdom. No more sickness, no more death, no more greed, no more dying, no more jail, no more crime, no more horrible things. None of that will exist anymore. Only life, and eternal and abundant life and peace and righteousness forever. That is the Father's kingdom. In fact, as the Father created Adam, as Adam and Eve came from the hands of the Father on this earth, that was the intent, that they should live on the planet forever, that they should have never been death on the planet. It was never the Father's intent that death should exist on planet Earth. But we know it did, we know it does, and we know why it does, right? So it does exist. So it exists on planet Earth because man gave the kingdom to Asatan. Okay, so we understand that part, right? Man gave the kingdom to Asatan. That's why death exists. Prior to that, there was no death. And when the kingdom is taken from Asatan, again, there will be no death. Okay, but look at this in Revelation chapter 18. Revelation chapter 18, talking about Babylon. Revelation chapter 18, talking about Babylon. Going to start at verse 21 and read down to verse 24. Revelation 18 from verse 21 to verse 24, talking about the kingdom, the system that we now live in of Babylon. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. No craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. That's one thing. But watch verse 24. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. Why does it say that? Because this is Asatan's kingdom. In the Father's kingdom, there is no death. So that any death that comes in Asatan's kingdom can be attributed to Asatan. This is the kingdom of Babylon. When the Father establishes his kingdom and puts death in the lake of fire with Asatan, there'll be no more death. Therefore, the Father's kingdom is nothing but life, whereas in Asatan's kingdom, there is death. And as the Father never intended and never wanted death to reign on planet Earth, and Asatan brought it, him and his kingdom become responsible for all deaths upon the earth. That doesn't mean that any person is not going to suffer the consequences for committing murder. But above all, Asatan will also. Okay, on that note, let's talk about a little history. So we are told in school that pilgrims came from Europe to the United States on ships and developed America. I mean, isn't that what we're told? Isn't that true? Am I lying yet? Weren't we all told that? So in other words, pilgrims came on ships like the Mayflower, and they came on like Plymouth Rock, and they came in places like now it was Massachusetts, and it was Jamestown, Virginia, and Florida, and different places, and they established themselves on this land that's now called the United States of America. They came from Europe, right? The Spaniards came from Europe, the French came from Europe, the British came from Europe. Now, we all know that's what was told to us, right? I'm not lying. That's it. Now, in Europe at that time, when the establishment of Christianity came to Europe in the form of the Roman Catholic Church, the people that were rich, whose families were wealthy, stayed wealthy. And the people that were poor, whose families were poor, stayed poor. And the people that got wealth would generally get it in one of two ways. Generally, there were exceptions, but generally one of two ways. The people that were wealthy got their wealth this way. They would either get it by owning land, which is why you get the term landlords. They would own land. This is talking about Europe now, prior to there being in the United States of America. So when you're in Europe and your family owned land, what you did is you put little huts and stuff on the land, and everybody rented, and you were the landlord. So your family remained rich because you never sold the land. Okay, that's how it was in Europe. Another way you got rich is if you were involved in some sort of invasion. Like you came to a land that had gold in it, and you took the gold and brought it back to Europe. You became wealthy. Okay? Like Puerto Rico, the rich poor, So they would go to places and take gold and assets from that place and bring it back to Europe, and they got wealthy. Or they would take land from islands that were previously discovered and grow stuff like sugarcane and have slaves, fields, do the sugarcane and make the sugarcane into sugar, into molasses, into syrup, into rum, and sell it all over Europe and make a lot of money, right? So those are the ways you got rich back at that time. There was no United States, right? That's how they generally did it. And the rich, talking about China trade, yes, the rich did that trade with China and made money. Now, how they did this, what happened with the church now, is the church would offer bishop positions to wealthy people, to wealthy families. So wealthy families, the head, the man, he would get a bishop. He would become bishop so-and-so. So not only did he get money from being rich in his family and being a landlord, but any monies given to the Catholic Church, he would share in that, giving money to Rome and giving his family money. So the landlords were rich and they got richer, and the poor people were poor and they stayed poor. So that you can have generations of people that were rich and generations of people that were poor. So then, when Columbus discovered America, for example, and when Canada was discovered and Mexico, some of these poor people would take risks by going on ships like the Mayflower. Why? Because they can come to a land that had nothing there but Indians and northern tribes, kill them, and now they got the land. Because the northern tribes, they have no gunpowder. See, one of the big discoveries that caused the children of Yafet to discover all of these places was the discovery of gunpowder. Because then they had this thing called a gun that they could use with the cannons and the guns. They started having rifles and cannons, and they took over. So now they had all this land, and it was theirs. And eventually the British would try to claim it, right? And they fought with the British to take it and have a white nation, white nationalism, right? Then they needed people to work the land. So they would offer jobs, first of all, to poor Europeans that wanted to come over that hadn't gotten the land rush, and they would offer them money to work for them. But that wasn't enough. So then they started, of course, getting the Hebrews from West Africa, and bringing that over. So now you had the Hebrews working with poor white people. And then the rich people separated them by saying to the white people, you white like us, even though they was all poor, you white like us. Them, they not like us. And so Black people eventually became slaves, and white people eventually became, you got your working class white people, and you had your wealthy. Okay. The United States was built up on that. And eventually what ended up happening, beginning of the 20th century, say, you had some really billionaire type dudes, right? And they were just taking advantage of the poor. You had little kids like 6, 7 years old working in factories 12-hour days and dying. And so what did these poor white people do? They formed unions. And they would close the factory. See, at that time, they couldn't take it overseas. So if they had a factory in New York, they had a factory in New York. So they formed a union, and they bring muscle, and the muscle would kill anybody that tried to break through the union to work, until the boss would decide, okay, I'm gonna give you a fair wage, and they started negotiating fair wages. Eventually what happened, by the time my daddy was at his working years and my mom was in their working years, the deal was like this. The corporation would be taxed at a very high rate unless they reinvested their revenues. And I mean, they get tax breaks for reinvesting their revenues. So my daddy could go to work, and they would pay him. At that time, the minimum wage was $2.65 an hour, right? They gave my daddy $30 an hour just to show up on a Saturday for 3 hours, and another $30 an hour to show up on a Sunday for 3 hours. Because if they didn't use the revenues, they would have to give it away in taxes. So they'd rather be able to have a write-off by paying their workers that money. At that time, my daddy would save his regular paycheck, and he'd work 7 days a week for many years. And we'd live very well off his overtime, because he would get all the overtime he wanted because they had to use the money. Then came the 80s and Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan, if you remember, came with this slogan: let's make America great again. Do you remember that? Maybe y'all too young. Y'all heard it from Trump, but Trump copied it. That was Reagan and Bush that started that. Let's make America great again. Now, because of the unions, the corporate masters couldn't just do whatever they wanted. And then with the laws being what they was, they couldn't just ride over the workers. They had to use the fact it was to their benefit to invest in the workers. Okay, it was their benefit to do that. But under Reagan, he started changing the laws of corporations, cutting the corporate taxes. And at the time, they called it, I don't know if y'all remember this, but they called it trickle down economics, or they call it supply side economics. What the theory was that if you let the upper crust make all the money they can and not pay taxes, they would allow that money to trickle down to the workers, which didn't make any sense because the whole reason you had unions in the first place and tax laws because you had to force them to pay, otherwise they wouldn't. They'd have 7-year-old kids working in there for nothing. But now Reagan tells them, you can trust me. And of course, he got the white face and he's talking about making America great again. He's talking about immorality. He's talking about the inner city, and the white people vote for him en masse. And he's talking about cutting taxes. Sounded real good. So, but what at the same time he was doing was letting that money flow up to the board of directors, to the CEOs, to all of that, and not to the workers. My daddy started retiring in the 90s, and I remember a lot of companies in the 90s was offering their workers packages to leave. They was sometimes, like my father, when he retired, he was 55, and they paid him a supplement for Social Security until he got 62, plus his pension. Okay, plus his whatever savings he had. And then they came out with the 401k. The 401k sounded real good because my pops got the 401k plus the pension. But what they was doing by the time you come to today, ain't no more pension. Ain't no more pension. And there's 401k if your company offers it. And then there's matching if your company offers it. And if you don't got enough money to save, because the average family makes about 60 grand a year, but it costs about 60 grand a year to live in the United States of America. When you're talking about house payments, car payments, insurance, taxes, health insurance, home insurance, it costs about 5 grand a month to live, and you make about 5 grand a month. So it's very difficult for people to save in their 401k, particularly Hebrews, but also children of your faith. So now, whereas back in the days of the labor unions, and back in the days when the workers, all the workers were like a family. Now, right now, you still got some strong unions, but they're generally, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, they're generally in big cities controlled by the Catholic Church, like New York, Boston, Philly, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Chicago. Am I lying? That's where you got the strongest unions that's left. Okay, that's where you got the strongest unions that's left, right? And those big cities controlled by the Catholic Church. And those unions are generally firefighters, police officers, and then, of course, you got your carpenters union, your plumbing unions. And in fact, if you try to work in New York as a plumber on your own, I'm talking about without a union, don't let nobody find out about it. If you all ever tried it, I've seen people do it. They will hurt you. You can't do it. They make you join the union, okay? And the unions back in the day were like family. You could get a pension, and you ain't had to worry about saving for your retirement. You had a pension coming, and then you had Social Security coming, so you knew that was coming, okay? But now, ain't no pension. And what happened at that time, people had a camaraderie. And everybody worked together, because if the corporation was successful, you would be successful, because they give you your pension, they give you overtime. If they was making money, they give you overtime, they give you your pension, you got your Social Security. You was pretty much, you wasn't gonna be rich, but you was gonna be able to make it. Okay. So now what they have done is they've taken that family attitude. We all work together. And they brought it in today's corporate. So they have people today selling their soul, working with all their heart to help whatever company they're working for make it. And there's no guarantee you will keep your job tomorrow. There's no union. There's no benefits unless you pay them out your pocket. And if you ain't saved for your 401k, that's what you got. And you might have a little bit for Social Security. But you could lose your job at any moment. Any one of us, unless you're in a union, any one of us could lose our job at any moment. They could call me in HR tomorrow and tell me I'm done. They don't have to warn you. They call it right to work. Isn't that what they call it? They call it right to work. And they don't have to call it. They don't have to warn you, nothing. They could just tell you that day, you done. And they do it. So what happens now? You got these people like United, the flight attendants. The flight attendants at United have not had a raise in 3 years. The starting salary of flight attendant for United Airlines, and this is all in that link I gave you, is $23,000 a year. Now, let me ask you a question. Can you survive on $23,000 a year? Can you take care of yourself and you got children or your family on $23,000 a year? That's the starting salary for a flight attendant. Next time you fly a plane, especially United, and you see the flight attendants, you should hook them up a little bit because that's what they're dealing with. Okay. So if it costs you, average on the median is $4,800 a month to make it, to break even. If two people are making $23,000 a year, they don't even make that. And if you're single or if you're divorced and that's what you're making, they says there are people that are flight attendants at United that were sleeping in their cars because they can't afford a place. They sleep in their cars. They wash up at the airport because they can't afford housing. Okay. So they're asking for a double-digit increase to make up for the 3 years they didn't get no raise. And the management is saying, nah. Now, let me tell you what's really happening. Because you got the corporations running stuff, and because they don't have to do anything, they don't have to pay you nothing. They can hold you off. Over these last 3 years, they also took note that in 2020, if you recall, the government was giving corporations and businesses money. If you remember, they were giving them money because the purpose was to not lay off anybody because of COVID. Some people took advantage of it and got over. Of course, most of them got caught. But the purpose of that money, of that COVID money, was to help businesses that may not be able to run normally because of COVID, so that they can make their payrolls. They wouldn't have to lay anybody off. That was the purpose of that. Well, United Airlines got billions of dollars. Billions. And that money never got to the workers. That money went to the corporate heads. That money went to the chairman. That money went to the board of directors. That money went to the officers. Okay? And the people suffered. So they wanted a little bit of money. They want to get something for all that time they put in to help. Last year, I think, if I'm not mistaken, last year, United Airlines revenues was something, what was it? $55.63 billion in 2023. That was their revenues last year. $55.6 billion. And they peoples ain't got no raise. And let me tell you what I'm saying to you is, this is the structure now. You must be loyal to the corporation. And the corporation holds all the strings. And you don't get much in return except to just be able to have a job. Now, let's expand that. So you got the corporations causing you all, they'll do it in every corporation. This corporation's a family and we care about work-life balance. Tell me if you heard this before. We care about work-life balance and we're a family and we're helping and our workers, and their workers are so happy, and they will lay you off in a moment. Right? Now, let's take it to the churches, because they're corporations too. They're corporations too. What do? The churches don't have to pay no taxes. They don't have to pay no taxes. Okay? They get all the money, and what do they tell you? The Lord's going to bless you. They get you right here. The Lord's going to bless you. This is God's church, and you name the church. It's the same thing. I don't care which one it is. Right? It could be Jehovah's Witness, SDA, more. I don't care which one it is. This is God's church, and you must support God's church. And then if you started, you don't want to leave God's church. Don't leave the ship, because you could be lost. If you leave God's church, you could be lost. You'll be out there on your own. Have y'all heard this before? and people be giving them money under the guise of this is God's church. Catholic Church will say, if you can't, tell me, any of y'all been Catholic, tell me if I'm lying now. If you can't take communion, you can't be saved. Am I lying to you? If you can't take communion, you can't be saved. If the Catholic Church blocks you from taking communion, you're lost. So you do what they tell you. You do exactly what they tell you, right? Because you don't want to be lost, right? I remember when I left the SDA church, there were people saying to anybody that listened to my Bible studies, if you listen to him and you leave the church, you're lost because he left the church. He's going to be lost. I even heard one guy say, you are right in what you teach, but you still need to stay with the church. That's catching you right here. The churches are the worst. Even worse, because at least if I'm working for some corporation, they could lay me off at any time. At least what I'm doing, when you work for a company, what you are really doing is you are selling your skills for a fee. And I'm not down in that because that's what you're doing. So if I work, wherever I work, if I work in a garage and I'm a mechanic and I fix cars, that's what I do. The company that owns the garage, that pays me, I am selling my skills for a fee. Whatever the hourly wage is, $20 an hour, $30, whatever it is, I've agreed with them. I'm going to sell you my skills, the use of my skills for a fee. That's what a wage is, okay? That's what it is though, right? So I'm putting in, even if it's not, even the United workers, if they're not being paid fairly, they're being paid. They've agreed for a certain fee to be paid. Now, it's not a fair wage, which is why they're getting ready to strike, but at least they're getting something. When you go to a church and you give them money, what are you getting in return? And the pastors and the conferences, and they got all this money. What do you get in return? What are you getting for giving them your hard-earned dollars that they don't got to pay no taxes? You still got to pay taxes. You still got to pay taxes. They don't pay no taxes. What are you trading your money for? What exactly are you doing? And if they say, well, you're supporting the church, okay, what are you supporting? For what purpose? They say it's for the building. Oh, you get to live in that building if you lose your house? Or if you get evicted from your apartment, they're going to put you up? What are you getting? And I tell the story all the time. This guy I was doing business with in Philly, and he kept wanting me to come to his church. I was not interested in coming to his church, and I let him know that. So we had a meeting with a lawyer. He did not tell me. He set me up. He did not tell me. He set me up more than that, but that's another story. But he did not tell me that the lawyer went to his church and the meeting is going to take place at his church. He said, well, the meeting's going to, when I get to Philly, the meeting's at my church. I said, all right. So we go to his church. Okay. We go to his church. And I go in there. Nice, big old brick building in Philly. Looked like one of them old, stone type buildings. Very nice. And nice, facility. We go in there. And of course, so I'm just sitting there. He said, we got to wait just a few minutes, service, just a few minutes. So they had me waiting. So I'm waiting here in this service, right? I see this man come up, this fat man with this purple suit on. And he's saying whatever he's saying. And they're starting to sing and go crazy on the music. And it's getting real loud. I mean, it was so loud in there. The place was literally shaking. It was loud. So then I noticed, in the crowd, people coming in, filling in, into the church. And I'm noticing some sisters coming in there. Let's say they were dressed with not that many clothes on. And so I'm like, dang, I'm looking and said, dang. I mean, several. I was like, oh, shoot. A lot of sisters in there. This one dude comes in and he got the silk shirt. He got silk on. He got jerry curl, for real. And he got a woman on both arms. And then there's women on the side of that. And they all come in like 4 women and they sit down on the side in the crowd. And I said, dang, I said to myself, dang, man, they got pimps coming here. Actually, that impressed me a little bit. I said, man, pimps coming to church, right? I said, oh, shoot. And they got, obviously women that look like working girls coming to church. And then I said, the pimps coming to church. So the service was over and we're leaving finally to go do business. My man, we're going to his car. We're walking to his car in Philly. And he says, what do you think of my church? And then I said, bro, I don't really want to discuss your church. That's your church. Even like I wasn't even in the truth I'm in now. But at that time I still, I was like, I don't want to discuss your church. That's your church. So then he said, no. I want to know what you think. So I said, the fat dude that was on the rostrum, that was your pastor? He said, oh no, that's brother so-and-so. He's the choir director. I said, oh. I said, who is the pastor? Pastor, what they see you? You didn't see him? I said, who was he? You saw him, he was on the right side. That was the dude I thought was the pimp. Now, at the time, my man that's talking to me, his house is in foreclosure. He's hiding his cars from the repo man. He's barely, putting food on the table for him, his wife, and his kids. His wife is actually working and making the money. And so they struggling. Yeah, for real. They struggling. And so I said, he said, so I want to know what you think. And then I said, wait, that dude that looked like the pimp was your pastor? He said, yeah. I said, how many cars does he have? 5. He got a nice house? He said, oh, he got a mansion. I said, so you struggling to stay in your house and you're hiding your cars. And this pimp, no, I said, this dude got a mansion and 5 cars and 4 women on his arm. And that's your pastor? He said, yeah. I said, your church is run by a pimp. I said, you asking me, right? I'm telling you, your church run by a pimp. That dude's a pimp. He looked at me and he said, you're right. And we just went on about business. And he kept going to that church. But I didn't know he ended up taking that church for $100,000. The dude was a scoundrel. But he said, you're right. Because he knew that was a game. And he played them. But that's the game people are falling for, even now. They're being told, your church is the truth. And this is God's church. And you better support God's church, even to the point where they're calling the church the sanctuary. This is God's sanctuary. And they're calling the ministers his anointed. Have you heard this before? They're calling his anointed. And what's going on? We're being bamboozled by the system. You see, they could still lay me off, right? They could lay me off tomorrow. But one thing they can't do, they can't get me to trust in the corporation. I already know who I need to trust in. I need to trust in the Heavenly Father. I already know that. Whatever he has for me, he's going to guide me and direct my path. If the road might be tough, I've been there before, that's okay. It's much better, easier for me right now, but believe me, lost houses to foreclosure, sheriffs, cars being taken, bankruptcy. I done saw all that. Ain't nothing you can show me that I ain't seen. Okay, I done seen it all. So I know from my own experience and spankings, I got the PhD in butt whoopings. I got that. So you can't show me nothing. So I know the Heavenly Father could take care of us. And he shows us beforehand. And this is what I'm loving about where we at right now. The Most High is having us read his word. And we can see through what's going on. When I saw that strike at United, I said, oh, I know what's happening. The corporation dudes making their money. They squeezing the workers for these last 4 years until the workers cry, the media gets hold of it, and then they'll pay them. They won't pay them what they're asking for. They'll pay them a little more. Meanwhile, in the last 4 years, they have made billions of dollars off the backs of them people. It's been the same from the beginning. I mean, when you really think about it, right? I mean, look, they came over here from Europe. They brought us from Africa. We built the place. We built it. What did we get paid? We got paid in lashes. Isn't that right? We got paid in lashes. And they got rich off of us. And then finally there was a civil war and we got out of the chains. They was a little threatened by that. So they had to regroup where they get Jim Crow. Okay. And they've been continually doing that. Jim Crow, they burned down Black Wall Street. They burned down, they burned down Rosewood. They burned down some places. Then they set up the crack trade, the heroin trade, the redlining, the whole ghetto. It's been continual stream of exploitation from the time they took us in them ships from West Africa. And now they're doing it to themselves on the corporate level. It ain't changed. The game ain't changed. The game is still the game. It ain't changed. Okay. But now we see through the game and we can go back to our Heavenly Father. And we know with absolute certainty the whole thing is going to be destroyed. The whole thing is going to be destroyed. We know this. And we also know with absolute certainty, not too much longer. Not too much longer. We understand now the game of Christianity, churchianity. We understand that game. And we don't fall for it because why? We don't need to go to churchianity, Christianity. We go straight to the Heavenly Father. And we go straight to his word. And he's got a spirit that's eternal that'll teach us his word, as y'all have found out for yourselves. I become very dangerous because I'm not telling you to follow me. And any man that says that, and I know they're lying. I would never tell anybody to follow me. I don't have no church to give you. The church that I'm a member of, the church that I belong to by blood, is the scattered nation of Israel, just like you. And so we are being awakened. And that is the greatest threat. The greatest threat. The greatest threat to roaches is light. And rats is being discovered. Isn't that true? The greatest threat to a rat is being discovered because they want to move in darkness. They don't want nobody to see them. And when you shine the light on them, they scatter. That's why the Messiah said, he that loves the truth come to the light. He that hates the truth don't want no light because they want to do deeds in darkness. And so that is why, as we are being awakened, we are being enlightened to the truth of the Father's Spirit and of his word. We can see through what's going on. Not only that, he shows us what's about to happen. See, that's why I tell y'all, don't listen to people that guess about prophecy. Don't guess. There are things you don't have to guess about. For example, you know for certainty the Messiah is going to return. That's not a guess. You know for certainty he's about to return. You know of a certainty he was crucified during the Passover. You know of a certainty the Feast of Weeks, he was resurrected and they gave the early rain. You know that of a certainty there's a day of atonement and there's a day of blowing the trumpets. You know of a certainty that every 50 years there's a jubilee. And you also know there's a Feast of Tabernacles. I'm not guessing about these things. These is true. That's true. Okay. And when you read the word, he puts it together for you. That you don't have to guess. Things are certain. But there's a lot of folks out here guessing. And the stuff that's getting ready to hit this planet, they ain't ready for. But the Father is going to have you and I prepared. Why? You know, y'all heard the story like of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. These were people that were working for what they called at the time the Underground Railroad. What was that? Of course, for those that don't know, there were people that were former slaves that were leading slaves out of plantations to the North and to Canada and to places where at that time slavery was abolished. Did you know that before the whole United States was even formed, in the state of Vermont, slavery was abolished? In fact, Vermont for a little while was its own country and agreed to join the Union. Vermont was discovered. Vermont was founded by the French. The Indians was already there, but they abolished slavery before even 1800 when they came into existence. Okay, Vermont had their own country and abolished slavery. So people were coming from places like Mississippi, Georgia, Virginia, North Carolina, south of the Mason-Dixon line, and they were trying to get north of it to get to some place where they could be free, at least a little bit. People like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman was helping. Those sisters were helping people. And one of the ways they used to travel course, they traveled at night mostly, right? They would look for the North Star. Am I lying to y'all yet? Matter of fact, they even had newspapers called the North Star, but they would look for the North Star because they knew if they were going in the direction of the North Star, they were going in the right direction to get out of the South. Okay? Let me tell you something. The Father set the North Star in its place, and He is the real North Star. And as long as our eyes are on Him, He will lead us through all the darkness, lead us through all the slavery, lead us through all the deception to the sea of glass. He is using the Messiah to stand before Him, that we can obtain all the blessings of the Spirit and wisdom and understanding of prophecy so that we will not be deceived and we can keep our eyes on Him. See, that's why I become dangerous. Did I say at any time, watch me? Did I say at any time, follow me? Did I say at any time, I'm your leader? Have I ever said that? No, I've never said that. And I will never say that by the grace of the Father, because I want to point you to the real leader. I want to point you to the way that's going to lead you through. Not the North Star, the Father, the Yah. And He has, you realize there's a jealousy between Asatan and the Messiah. You realize there's a jealousy between Asatan and the Messiah. I want to show you real quick. Listen to this. Watch this. Y'all read this before, but y'all read both of these verses before, but watch this when we put them together. Watch when we put them together. This is Isaiah. We've already discussed the Babylonian kingdom versus the eternal kingdom of Messiah that the Father has given Him, right? We've already discussed that. And in Babylonian kingdom, there's death. In the Father's eternal kingdom, there is no death, right? So in Isaiah chapter 14, starts off like this. Isaiah 14, verse 12. Look at this. Isaiah 14, verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Lucifer is called the son of the morning, which means he was what? Bright. Does that make sense, y'all? He was bright. He's called the son of the morning, but the Bible said he fell because he wanted to be like the Most High. Did I lie to y'all yet? So he said, I will be like the Most High. He's called the son of the morning. He was made bright by the Father, and he decided he wanted to be like the Father, so he rebelled against the Father. Let's look at the contrast. Let's look at the Messiah, the contrast between him and Asatan, and you'll see the jealousy. Notice what it says here in Revelation chapter 22. Revelation chapter 22, he announces who he is. That is the Messiah does. In Revelation chapter 22, verse 16, let's compare. Revelation 22, 16. What does it say? I, Yahushua, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches or in the assemblies. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. So you see now, Messiah is sent from the Father, Emmanuel, Yah with us. Yahushua's righteousness, Yahweh's righteousness. He's sent as a representative of the Father. He is the bright and morning star given to us from the Father. He sits before the Father at the Father's call to be the high priest. Whereas Satan, he was a morning sun, but he wanted to be like the Father. And now his light getting ready to be put out. So you can see how he would feel about Messiah, how he would hate Messiah, because Messiah is what he wants to be, and he will never be. Messiah is the bright and morning star set forth by the Father, the anointed of all anointings, the bright of all brightness. And the Father is the ultimate North Star. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May He cause His face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may He lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, family. Be safe.